Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Lady Bam podcast. Thank you all for the warm welcome for our first podcast. I think I speak for all of us when I say we were really blown away by the response and the conversations that it seemed to have sparked with many of you. We're really looking forward to continuing that today, and we're so excited about our special guest, Katee Sackhoff.
Woohoo! Yay!
Yay!
I'm the background.
Oh, dear.
I'm Mina, and I'm here with Chelsea, and of course, the one and only Mary McDonnell. Hi, Mary.
Yay!
Well, first of all, ladies, I want to talk about the fact that we have now this tradition of food, which I know that all of you who are going to be listening to this can't eat with us, but just know, I think what you should do when you listen to Lady Bam is put out cheese and drink wine. We can't drink wine. Well, we could.
Well, we could. It's 11.
It's 11 in the morning, so
And
we
I have
won't,
I have
right?
a
Well,
I have a Barry's boot camp class after this, so I
no,
don't
we're
know
not gonna drink.
if that would be
I know.
sprinting on a treadmill might go badly. It's like,
you guys, as Mina referred to, were so wonderfully responsive to the interview with SKB, and there's more to come, but I am really thrilled today to have Miss Katee with us. And it's kind of emotional for me, Katee, frankly, to sit here and look at you, because we've known each other for a very long time now. And I have enjoyed so much watching you both remain exactly the same as when I first met you, and grow beyond one's projections. And it's really nice to see, because when you're in the business as long as I've been in the business, that is not always the case. You know what I mean? You watch young people come into the business, although you were in the business before we met, but you watch them grow, and it doesn't always translate into a career that grows, or a point of view that grows, or a style that grows. So it's kind of interesting for me to see you. And that's part of why I wanted you here today, because you've got a giant career out there, and you have tremendous amount of fans, and you're very, very generous with your communication. You've done, I think I wrote down, let's see, where did I put it? In the past 15 years, I think, 15, 16 years, you've done almost 25 projects. Now, that's really rare.
well, when you put it like that, I don't think I've
Exactly.
ever.
No, why would you count your projects?
No.
I mean, I'm supposed some people would, but I don't think you or I would. But I can count yours.
Yeah.
That, and I really wanted to look at it. I really wanted to count it, because I know a lot of what you've done, but there's a lot of what you've done I don't know. And when I started I said, wait a minute, I haven't known. Katee hasn't been in the business for 40 years. She's not old enough. This is the resume of someone who's been in the business a lot longer than you've been alive, frankly. I mean, statistically
speaking.
And I thought, well, now that's a really interesting factoid about you, because how does one... All right, let me start over to when I first met you, okay? So my most vivid memory of when we first started to work together on Battlestar, and it must have been during the pilot, because I don't think we were on the lot that we ended up being on. Didn't we shoot the pilot somewhere else? Well, it was a film, so we shot it everywhere.
Yeah, we shot
right?
it everywhere.
So we were on location somewhere, God knows. We came out of our trailers at the same time and walked to the set together, and I think it was the first time we talked. And I'll never forget it, because your energy was like electric. You were just on fire. You were so excited and so ready, and so Starbuck was being redefined in that walk. I was like, oh my God, this is really exciting. And what I think is fascinating is that, so I see you over the years, I watch your work grow, I watch you grow, how that level of fire and charisma translates into adulthood. And I wonder, from your point of view, you know, when someone says to you, you've done 22 projects or whatever, do you Do you have a sense of how you've matured? Do you have an internal sense? Or do you still feel like that actress that you and I almost got fired laughing together because we laughed so much? You know what I mean? What is it like? Do you have a sense of your growth?
Well, to start off, thank you so much for
You're
that.
welcome.
I don't think that, I think so much of the time we try, or I strive for humility. And I don't sometimes realize what I have done, what I am doing with my career that I set out to, some little girl from Portland, Oregon, to accomplish. Sometimes you don't take it in and smell it as this big rose and go, holy crap, that's amazing. So I appreciate that. That's sort of, all those moments I'm screaming at my agents. I'll remember that.
Yeah, right. I know. Should send him a present.
I should send him a muffin
that's
basket.
A whole other discussion.
Yeah, that is a
We
whole,
won't get
right?
into that right now.
I don't, somebody asked me the other day if I'm a happy person. And I said, I most certainly have happiness in my soul.
Yep.
That does not mean that I'm happy all the time. But I sort of take on everything that comes at me with childlike excitement, and I try to get just overly enthusiastic about it because it is exciting. It's the things that we get to do that are blessed to do are a dream come true for me. So I try to remind myself of that all the time and just get excited.
Well, let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because when you say that's part of what I'm really interested in, because you do carry a lot of joy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a natural part of people have different qualities to their particular charisma, and I think charisma is an energy that I certainly feel that performers who last a lifetime carry a strong element of charisma, particular to them, and I think that inside of that, there's different elements that are greater or lesser, or darker or lighter. Some male actors have a very dark charisma.
Yeah.
And it keeps them going, correct? Ladies, ding,
Yeah.
ding.
Yeah.
You have tremendous joy at the core. Although I know you're not always joyful. You're a very emotionally complex human, thank God. But what I'm interested in is, when you say, I get excited, I get as enthusiastic as I can, how do you do that? Because some people, I might dare to say a lot of people, don't know how to go from here to get really excited. How is there or have you always projected yourself into that place, or does it happen automatically that you can get into that much enthusiasm?
My parents sort of raised me to be joyful and to be excited. I also grew up in a household with a lot of yelling. And so it was something that I faked
funny.
for a long time. And my mom used to always say to me, if you don't know how to do something, fake it until you do, because most people can't tell the difference. So happiness sometimes is a learned thing. I think that people they feel guilty when they're not just happy.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to pretend you're happy to get through a day. And I find that when you do that, if you put yourself out there in a happy sort of state and you smile, someone will inevitably smile back at you, and it makes you happy.
Yeah.
And then you just have to hold on to it and then just keep going. That is one of the biggest things that I've learned in how to stay happy, is that if you project happiness, everyone around you, it's contagious.
I agree.
And then it comes back at you, and then it's just joyful.
Right.
And that's not, I have moments though where I get down, really down.
Do you crash down, or do you go down slowly?
It's situationally,
right?
Situationally for sure. And there are certain people I crash down to. Yeah. And I can usually pull myself out of it by going for a walk.
Oh, that's
because
good.
the thing, so this is how I found make myself happy, or to be joyful, or to be grateful for what you have, it's all about perception. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to look at the people around you and look at the struggles of other people in the world. And when you do that, I hope that it inspires some sort of humility in yourself to realize that it can always be worse.
Right.
And if you have a roof over your head, you have a job, and you have food on the table, and you're surrounded by people that love you, and you're healthy, you are better off than 70% of the people in this world. And if you can't, you have to be able to see that. And if you can't see that, you need to look harder, because that's what makes me grateful on a daily basis. Is that I have been given those 5 things to go out and be happy. And if I can't spread happiness with those gifts, then I'm doing a disservice to everyone around me. And I'm sort of spitting in the face of the luck that has been afforded me.
Right. What do you say to, because I know your fans ask a lot of you, and I mean that in a positive way. They ask, they want to know, they want to, understand. But how do you respond to people whose struggles don't have the same tools? They don't have the same tools as you do to meet the struggles of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I see that a lot. We're actresses, and we're really, really, really lucky to be able to do this, express ourselves, and that we were given a certain look and all these things, voices that,
right,
for whatever reason. So I'm always a little concerned when I'm asked questions about how do I stay this or that I can't quite respond fully understanding anyone else's point of view. How does someone without certain tools or without certain gifts or with life circumstances that are so troubling do that, what we're talking about? And how, you know what I'm saying?
I am not a teacher.
Yeah.
I am not.
Right.
I am a role model, but it's not my job to raise your children.
Right.
I am a teacher by leading by example, but I cannot help you figure it out.
Right.
I guess it goes back to you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like the best tool I have to help those people
right.
is to just lead by example.
Right.
But it also makes me wish that I could do more. I just don't have the tools yet to help to that capacity. I was watching this beautiful documentary on Ram Dass the other day.
Yeah.
And spiritual leader. There's a 30-minute documentary on Netflix right now that was beautiful, just about his life and sort of.
Do you know what it's called?
I think it's Ram Dass: The Journey Home, because he had a stroke a few years ago, and his tools as a spiritual leader were always his voice and being able to talk to people and sort of coming back to that. But also, he's always been a person who welcomed death as another journey, and so it was all about welcoming him home to that next part of his life. And it was a really beautiful sort of thing of I think that what I realized from that was his voice may have been the tool, but he himself was the teacher, and the way he lived his life was what he had to give people. And so I watched that and was just, really motivated and just sort of, I don't have those tools that he has. There are some people that are born to teach and help.
Right.
I don't have that. I'm not to say I can't help people, but I don't have the vocabulary to reach somebody on a deeper level, I guess, and help their life. I don't think.
Well, some would say that. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. You don't feel you're. Perhaps it's not on your path. Perhaps it will be. You don't know. But some would say that the roles one plays out there on that massive level are the teaching instrument. Do you feel that way? Even though you don't intend to teach with them, do you?
Yeah. You mean like the roles we play as actors? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Starbuck for me, I find that the roles I played growing up in this business were very representative of where I was in my life. And I used them also as teaching tools. So Starbuck for me, I was never very honest with my feelings. I was sort of raised to not complain and to not speak up unless you thought that it was something that was worthwhile to the group. And that you're strong enough to handle it. And so just take it was sort of the way I was raised, where, that you'll be okay, Katee, just go over there. And so what I learned from Starbuck, and playing her at that point in my life, was this unapologetic honesty that I then took a little too far. During those years.
In other words, you experimented. You took her into your life.
I did.
To see how far you could go?
I did.
Did you know you were doing that?
No. Not until hindsight. I mean...
That's good.
Yeah. It was, I sort of looked back and went, oh, God. Like, that was, I sort of was like, if you can't take it, get out of the seat, whatever. But
frack you.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw this tweet, actually. This was a woman, someone didn't like her work or something like that, and she said, if you don't like my peaches, don't shake my tree.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like I think who I was at that point. And I learned that from Starbuck, but she, I definitely pulled it back and found myself in there somewhere.
Yeah. That's a thing I love about acting is someone said this to me the other day, because I've been not playing Sharon Rader now for almost 8 months.
Wow.
Which no one realizes except me, and maybe James Duff. We know, right? And I had a spiritual person who's in my life say to me, I was questioning the what I perceived as the lack of speed. If you hear a gurgle, by the way, everybody, in the background, it's this air conditioning system that's supposed to be environmentally wonderful, but it will gurgle now and then, so it's joining us. What I was saying was, she said to me that the speed with which things were going had everything to do with the rate at which Sharon Rader's character in me was receding.
Interesting.
And I played her for 7 years. So there's a little time for that hologram, it almost feels like, to sort of recede, and whatever else is going to come out and connect to emerge. Yeah. In the meantime, though, don't you think that part of you that you really had to work with in a primary sense becomes part of your personality that perhaps was hidden, I think, until then, or you didn't understand it?
Yes,
before,
absolutely.
Right?
We take life experiences and they become a part of ourselves.
Right.
Our losses, our success, all of these things.
Right.
We don't become greater than them. They become part of ourselves and move us toward the rest of our life.
Right.
And so I think that yes, all of the characters that I've played have all become parts of me. I'm convinced I could fly a plane.
Yeah.
I'm convinced I could.
You could fly a plane. I would get into a plane if you said, right? I'm flying. Let's go.
Yeah. No, there's not a part of me.
I remember seeing you in those things.
I know.
On the set, walking, and there'd be Katee up in
my big little do-do-do-do.
I know.
So and funny. I always, whenever I played her, I had a skip. She just had, she had a way of walking. Kara was more, Anyway, but no, it's we become these characters and they become part of ourselves. And, one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and tell me if you feel the same way, is that if you have a really emotional day at work, your brain knows intellectually that it wasn't you, but your body and your soul,
they don't know,
have no idea. And you go through that trauma of releasing what that person went through that day. Right. I mean, I have had many a nights on the floor with my glass of vodka in the shower, sitting on the bottom of the shower, sort of crying, and not as Katie, but like as like that day was just too much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember listening to, I think it was a British actor. I wish I could remember who right now because I love this performer. I can't remember who it was, but it was years and years ago, long time ago, when I was first learning my craft and understanding how things worked for me. And they were talking about how they didn't connect at all, and it was all very technical, and they came in and you projected it and what have you, and they went home or went to the pub and had a, and I thought, I'm absolutely fracked here because I don't know. I have no capacity to delineate that clearly. And it isn't that I become this other person, although my family might tell you otherwise, because when I was playing Laura Roslin, they used to call me Madam President because I guess I got a little bossy.
Did you get bossy?
Oh, yeah, I think I did. And I can be that way, but I guess I was a lot that way. But I really do feel that the energy that we use, which I think you're talking about, when a character dictates to us that we need to communicate the experience of devastation, anguish, grief, humiliation. A lot of those moments are about humiliation and exposure. We experience that. Mm. And so later on, it doesn't matter if it was you or her. You feel the aftermath. I do, at any rate. So I've never really quite understood those who it doesn't seem to cost them.
Yeah, no, I know. There are times when I feel like I've, like crossed off years of my life with like the stress of these women that I play. I know. It's scary. Yeah, I mean.
Well, I've got this thing now where it's like, I'm not dying anymore.
Oh, yeah,
I've
right?
died too many times now. It's like, okay, that's done. I did that. So, you know what? I don't know. I'm not going to say don't call me because it depends on the money, but
because listen, we're all for sale to a certain extent. I'd really like to put those nicer shingles on my new house.
I know, it's true. My little cottage that I'm winterizing, but it is something. It's like you do have to process the experience, and I think most really good actors. I think the ones that don't go through that are very rare, and they have a different kind of gift. Mm. Ladies over here, I just want to ask you, I have to ding this because it's my new thing.
Whenever the girls
talk, we're going like this. Okay. It's time for Chelsea and Mina to weigh in. When you watch actors, ladies, can you see the difference between, do you project onto performers like this person works more technically, that person, it's costing them more truth? Do you have any perception of that? I'm curious.
I think for me, because I'm in a position where I work with different actors,
yes.
Once I know somebody, I can tell when I'm watching them on screen. Like this one takes this much more internally versus somebody else who obviously just it doesn't internalize a character at all.
Right.
But I don't know that I could say like just watching people I haven't interacted with before, that I don't know, just terribly generalizing. I would assume that men probably have more of a capacity to turn it on and off just because that's kind of what they do on
That's funny.
Not to be evil, but
that's interesting. How about you, Chelsea?
So I'm in a different place from all you guys. I don't work with actors. I'm not an actor. Right. I mean, this is the closest I come to everything. I have friends that are actors, and watching my friends is really interesting because they get these, I guess they're called sides.
Yeah.
And, they read through and they go through so many different ways of playing things.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm over here and I'm like, I'm just going to read it like the way I would, because you have to go back and forth. And sorry, I'm not super technical over here. But it's interesting to see them do the parts where they're like getting really invested in things.
Yes.
Versus where they're like, well, this is how they told me to do it. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to watch that, and you can kind of tell. But like when I'm watching a movie or a TV show, I'm watching for plot.
Yeah, you don't really respond to that level.
And there's some characters where I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was brilliant acting. But that's about all I got.
But you don't know why necessarily. Like
I don't.
I hear you. It's like you say, "Oh, that was brilliant. I really responded to that." But you don't know if that person created an external character, or that person is really works in a way that's more personal.
Right.
You don't know them.
Yeah. I mean, and I we might have to cut this out, but Jared Leto, for example, super like method actor. He does all this stuff, which is interesting to me because I don't understand it. Mm-hmm. But everybody's like, you can see it in his performance, but then I don't see a difference in some other people who are not method actors.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's sort of ding ding, right? It's like the result is really all that counts. But I was just kind of curious I can see when I watch people, this person works more technically, this person works less technically, in a more exposed manner. This one is an architect of sound. Some people are vocal performers, But I was just curious if people who aren't performers see it that way.
For me, I haven't studied. So for me, there is an element of needing to understand why a person is doing what they're doing and how they would react in reality in order to portray something.
Right.
Because I don't have the technical tools to go through in Meisner technique. I don't even know what that means. Like, I have no idea. And so I have my own set of questions and things that I go through and ask myself. But it's funny because I've worked with a lot of DPs who say things to me, and now I take it as a compliment, because at the beginning I was sort of like, is this an insult? But they say, you don't know how to find your light. You don't know what is your good side. You don't know what is this. You don't know, you look old in this shot, or like maybe you should sit up straighter because your tummy looks a little folded. And I'm like, I don't give a shit that much, people. I don't care.
Yeah, I know.
I will find my light if it's my key light and I'm supposed to find it, I'll find it.
Right.
But if it's, I have zero vanity when I am playing a character. Mm-hmm. If the character is supposed to look tired, make me look as tired as I can.
Right.
If the character is supposed to not be self-conscious about the role that she has when she leans over, then I need not be self-conscious about it. Like I don't make sure that I look my best in every shot, because that's not, to me, reality. Mm-hmm. But I've worked with a lot of people who are so technical, and their posture is the straightest thing I've ever seen, whether it's right for the character or not, because they want to make sure they look great.
Right.
And, I just don't have that in me.
Yeah.
That's more tiring than
it's
just
exhausting.
Yeah.
I have both in me. There are times when I don't give a shit. And, I've played roles where, I remember doing Passion Fish, and the first time I saw it was at the opening. And I hadn't really thought about how I looked in that movie once, because I'm playing like a really bitter ex-soap opera actress paraplegic, and I don't really think that her focus would be on how do I look. But when I saw the movie, I wanted a hole to open up in the theater, and I wanted to drop down into the netherworld and come out like 10 blocks away. Yeah. Because it was so exposed physically. It was so
Yes, trust me, I'm not.
You don't like looking.
I don't like to watch myself for these reasons. Like, I don't want to watch anything I've ever done.
I know.
Because
now that's a question. Do you ever watch?
I watch everything one time to critique myself, and I never watch it again.
Right. That's good. And at what point do you watch it? Do you watch it during? Like, okay, you're doing a TV series. How much Battlestar did you see at the beginning? Did you check in at the beginning? Did you check in the middle? What did you do?
I watched a lot of Battlestar just because we had a lot of downtime in our trailers. And I would go and steal the discs from the office and watch the last few episodes.
Right.
I would do that just because I found it interesting and fun. I've never watched the series all the way through, so I have no idea.
Right.
So I, but yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah, it's a good series.
I don't.
Chelsea just
said.
Yeah.
It's on Prime now, so I can watch it for free.
I know.
Maybe I should watch it. I've never
watched it all the way through.
No, either have I.
Yeah.
I watched Longmire all the way through,
Now, why'd you do that?
but not during, after. To see what the fuss was about. Everyone loved this show. And I was like, well, I'm here. You know, like it's really? Like, because, you know, as an actor, sometimes you can't be, it's hard to be objective. And so I was like, okay, well, and so I watched the first season just because I thought I should. And then I watched the second season because it had such a, you know, fan base. And so I sort of wanted to be able to see what people loved about the show. And that's why I watched it.
Right. I have had the experience a couple times, and I wonder if you have ever, where, because, you know, I point to the TV simply because I'll walk into a room, right, and there'll be a movie on that I did so long ago, and I've never seen it, or I haven't watched it except for that sort of watching it sort of through my hands like this just to get through it because I had to. And I'll go, wow. I'll look at myself and go, this is going to sound very arrogant. I don't mean it to. It's just my honest thing. I look at it and go, I wish I'd known I was good like that. I knew I was good, but I wish I'd known that I was that, because I don't ever know in the time that I am what I am. I never know that I am. I only know years later. Sometimes I look and go, ugh. But a lot of times I look and go, I wish I'd known. Would I have been more powerful? Would I have been more, would I have been able to, would it have changed anything?
Or would you have been too much?
Or would I have been
you know, like sometimes
obnoxious?
those actors that know that they are are really hard to be around. I mean,
it might be a blessing in
I
disguise.
mean, I
right?
sort
And
of like one of those things. Like I wish I knew then what I know now. Maybe not.
Maybe
not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. You
I know, because insecurity, unfortunately, like it or not, is a beautiful tool. It actually helps us, I think. Does it? Does it help you?
Absolutely.
Feeling insecure in the work.
Yeah, my dad used to always say when I moved here, one of the things he said to me was, fine, you better know what makes you different than every girl that looks exactly like you, because there's going to be thousands of them. He said they're going to be prettier. They're going to be not as pretty. They're going to be taller, smaller, bigger, skinnier, all of these things, but they're going to look just like you.
Right.
And he's like, what makes you special? And if you can't figure that out, you might as well not go.
Right.
And so for the first many, many years of my life, I didn't know. I just sort of lucked
Even
out.
though he asked you to, you couldn't figure it out.
No, I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what it was until I actually had it thrown in my face.
Right.
And what it was, and now I've made a career out of it, is playing incredibly strong women with tremendous vulnerability. And that vulnerability is my insecurity that I bring to the character.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was doing it in the beginning of my career. I just didn't know what it was yet.
Now, like even when you were in Max Bickford, you knew that. I mean, you didn't know what it was, but you had it.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she had that. She was a pistol.
Yeah. And but talk about had I known then what I know now. I was working with Oscar winners like every day, like when I was 19 years old, just like whatever.
Yeah.
Peter O'Toole, fine.
Yeah.
Eli Wallach, fine. It is sort of, you know.
Yeah, I do. It's how I felt when I did the movie Matewan, which was my first film.
Yes.
And so every time I turned around, there was James Earl Jones or this, and it was the very first time I beheld, I will say this, the first time and worked with for the first time David Strathairn, who is now a good buddy and I've worked with a lot. We've sort of grown up together. David Strathairn, when the first moment I saw him, I hope he listens to this. He will. He likes the podcast. So the first time I saw him, I went, what? Because he was just so handsome and interesting and unlike any male ego personality that I'd met as an actor before. And then I turned around and there was Chris Cooper.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and it just kept going. And I thought, I'm going to die. I don't know what I'm doing. You don't even mean in front
And
of
God
a camera.
forbid they figure it out.
I know. What if they find out that I don't
They
know
find out
anything?
I'm faking it.
I know.
God help me.
I know. Did you ever feel like you got busted?
Oh, God. I've told this story once before that Eddie busted me on Battlestar.
What did he do?
We
Oh
were
my
doing
God.
the scene where
Of
Kara
course.
has to, right? Of course it's Eddie.
Right.
We were doing the scene where Kara has to tell him that she was responsible for Zach's death.
Right.
And between every take, I'd go out and I'd like play with the
Do your
crew
thing.
and I'd be like, do, 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 like, you know, my happy-go-lucky thing. And
Shoot hoops with little Mikey
all of it.
Mel.
I would do all of that between takes. Exactly. I was just like, I'd come back in and be all sweaty. They'd be like, what are you doing? And he pulled me aside and basically said, you are so good at faking it that I don't think anyone realizes that you're actually faking it. Oh my gosh. And he goes, if you would actually try, I think you'd be really good. And I was like, what? What's he talking? I've been working for 10 years in this business. Like, what is he talking about? And he goes, just listen. Listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth and watch my face. And then, you know, just be in the moment. And I did it. And that was the first moment in my entire career where I walked out. And when it finished, I was like, oh my God, I'm acting.
Oh, that's so cool. Kate.
Yeah. And
That's
I
so
walked out and my
great.
hands went over my head because I was sobbing.
Yeah.
I was just so overwhelmed by this woman's pain
Right.
and guilt.
Right.
And it was the first moment that I'd never faked it or that I didn't fake it. Eddie. Yeah.
He is a gem.
Yeah.
He is the gem in our lives. He really is.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about the other day? Because I was thinking about we're all going to Bonn.
Yes, I
Which
just
is-
got they just gave me my ticket information.
God, it's going to be a hoot.
Oh, are you leaving the 16th?
I don't know.
Oh God, I should send you my ticket to see if we're on the same flight.
I don't know. We don't know yet, right? But I was thinking about all of us, and I was thinking about Ed. And I thought, what really is it about him that makes me smile so deeply? There's so many things. But when I think about those years, he's got such a gigantic personality. I mean, one of the biggest personalities of anyone I've ever met. So, and he enforces it upon you. And so there's a part of you that just starts giggling, like, is this real? But in fact, he was a constant example of leadership. Constant. And it's almost like the bigness of his personality, you didn't even quite get all the time. The value of what he was saying was so tremendous in every aspect to every person on the set. He never stopped doing that. And he's still doing it. I just got back. I went up to Bakersfield to shadow him on a movie he's shooting.
Yeah.
And I watched him wrangle a couple of moments, because independent films, it's all about what can you get away with for no money. And I watched him like navigate these moments where he had to solve the problem on his feet, didn't have the money, had to make everybody happy. And it was just, I was reminded again that he works from a place that really is fueled by love. And that was a very loving thing he did for you.
Oh, yeah.
And another actor / director might not have done it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, you know, there are beautiful pieces of wisdom and sort of that get imparted to you as you go through life.
Oh, God, yeah.
And there's been so many of them, you know, like going back to what Chelsea said earlier is that, you know, Marcia Gay Harden said to me one time that, and it was so simple, because what you said about everyone's putting on these characters and I'm just doing it the way I would do it. Well, that's what we all try to do. We're just overpaid compulsive liars. We've got to convince ourselves that something's real, and if we can convince ourselves, we can convince the audience. And so she said to me, always trust your instinct, and usually the first one is the right one. Don't overcomplicate. And that was something that it shaped my career, because I never went for my second choice. I always went for, what's your first reaction? What's your first instinct? Go for it. Don't overthink it, because that's the reality. Your first reaction is what a human being feels. And there are moments, of course, but, you know, I mean.
There's times when you want to perfect it. But I remember someone said to me, I can't remember who it was, if you like your first take, screw up the subsequent ones. So you sort of like undermine the following takes, and then they finally go, yeah, I like the first one too. Let's see, just moving on.
I hate when directors say, one more just for you. I always respond, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need one more. Please, I don't need one more. We've got 11 and a half hours to get the day.
That's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like what? So, Tarek, let's go over here for a second to any of the fan questions. Let's take a fan question.
Ooh.
Yeah, the fans
I'm going to mute myself and eat a cracker.
Yeah, eat a cracker.
Well, I think one thing that came up a couple times and I think is interesting, especially taking it kind of to the next level, is that, like on BSG, Laura and Starbuck, both were characters that we would normally see inhabited by men,
right,
but were on screen as women. But the fact that they weren't women, you know, Laura being a woman president, Kara being a woman fighter pilot, was just a non-issue. Was that something that was more conscious in your minds, or was that just in the writing and therefore it just became the way it was?
Well, I'll speak for myself because my character didn't exist at all. It wasn't just that she, you know. So the idea that she was coming in as a new character was one thing that I had to really sort of think about. There's no preconceived notion. So she's coming in, so she was immediately sort of outsider. But the fact that she was a female president was very much something I was aware of because we were just entering the beginning of that, and it was we were shooting it as Hillary and Obama were going through the first nomination primary, and so I was very aware of it. Just because she was a president, not because there was anything about Laura Roslin that identified itself as particularly this or that. That's one of the things I liked about her. She was neither this nor that. She just kept trying to navigate. But because she was a president, I was aware of that. How about you, Katee?
Someone actually had this explain this to me the other day without realizing that they did. And it's in relation to my new show and what we were trying to accomplish there. So we were talking about it in the writer's room. And somebody said the reason it wasn't an issue was because they never made it an issue. On Battlestar Galactica, they never talked about the fact that Starbuck was a woman. She just was. They never talked about the fact that, I mean, they might have touched on,
Roslin.
Yeah. For Roslin,
they called her a school marm.
They did. They did.
Projected. They used that.
They did.
Because it's politics.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so in the context of, they were asking the question of, do we want to get into the she's a woman and da-da-da-da-da? And I said, I don't know. Do we want to get into it? Because if we get into it and we bring it up as the creators, the audience is going to have the discussion. Mm-hmm. Do we want the discussion to happen or do we not? Mm-hmm. And I think that it was something that Ron did on purpose.
Absolutely.
Like
100%.
if we don't acknowledge that Starbuck's a woman and these other pilots are women, then it's not an issue.
That was the universe he wanted to create, was that gender was no longer the issue. I think just for Rosalind's point of view, because she was a political figure, gender was more of an issue. But in society, it wasn't as much of an issue. Talk about your new show, can you? A little bit or no? It's up to you.
I can't really at all.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah.
Because the announcement hasn't come out yet. So,
this is wonderful, though, to even say there is one coming.
I know. It's
23.
I know. I'm excited. 26 exactly. Yep. It's the first time producing.
Great, Katee.
So I actually have like a say in things.
Right.
It's my first time back to sci-fi, which is I haven't done for a long time because I when you hit it out of the park like we did without really even realizing that we were doing it, it's hard to go back into that genre and not let people down.
Right.
So I sort of waited till we were far enough away which ironically Battlestar's bigger now than it was then. So
Can't get away
it didn't
from
really
it.
help me.
You can run, but you can't hide.
No,
you know what I mean?
but I'm really excited about it, and I'm surrounded by an amazing team that is teaching me daily to learn a new aspect of this business.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm excited. It's on Netflix. So
when you start
that
shooting?
I can tell. August, back in Vancouver.
Oh my gosh. Where are you going to live? No, you can't say.
I don't know.
You told all the fans.
Oh my God. There's a part of me that was like, I'm going to live on the beach this time.
Yeah.
You know, and just like do it and not live in like a tiny apartment miserable like I did.
I
during
rented a house
Battlestar.
the first. Do you remember my house the first season? Were you ever
Yes.
there? That was a couple blocks from the water. That was cool. But I would go way out now.
Well, see, that's what I want to do.
Michael Reimer and Loretta.
Yeah.
Remember their house?
Yes,
Out on the
all the
water?
way over there.
Yeah.
Well, so we're shooting, I think, at a stage that's out in Surrey. So I
Oh,
could like
wow,
live in,
you
I could go out
could.
to White Rock.
Oh, my
all the way out to
gosh.
almost the U.S. border on the beach. So anyway, it's really hard to find a rental with dogs.
How many?
People-
Let's talk about your dogs a little bit,
Oh, let's.
please.
They're like
All right.
my
So, how many
children.
dogs do you have right now?
I have 3 now.
Great.
I have Nellie Bean is 12, who I had during Battlestar. I got her
Unbelievable.
in Vancouver.
Yes.
Yeah, she was a
Nellie
holy
Bean.
terror.
Yeah.
She
was a holy
She
terror.
was a holy terror.
Yeah.
Kate Vernon tried to convince me to get rid of her at one point because she was such a little pisser.
What did Katie say?
She goes.
She's now-
She was like, because
she's-
Meatball just really wasn't settling,
No,
and Nellie
Meatball was the
terrified. And she goes,
best.
you know, there's nothing wrong with admitting that you made a mistake and finding her a new home. And I was like,
no.
oh my God,
Oh
I can't do that.
God, break
And
your
I didn't. And
heart.
she's amazing. And then Vargas, who I got during.
Vargas.
He's named after the shopping mall of the parking lot that he was thrown out of the car in. So Scott and I, my ex, got him in New Mexico, and he was
Wow.
teeny tiny and covered in ticks, and
Wow.
just like a guy was giving him away for gas money, and I was like, give me that damn dog.
Oh my gosh.
Scott,
honey.
give him $20. I was like, just give him
Yeah.
$20 and go away. Guy was really sketchy. So we named him after the DeVargas Shopping Center.
So how long have you had him?
So Vargas is 5.
Wow.
And then, and Nellie's 12. And then this new one sort of followed one of my neighbors home. And then she was like, she had this, never, you know, I try to notice when people need to communicate sometimes
Yeah.
when I'm out in public. And this woman just looked fit to be tied. And I was on my morning walk with the dogs, and she just seemed so overwhelmed.
Right.
And so I walked by, and then I thought to myself, no, Katie, no. And I turned around and I said, are you okay? Can I help you? And she just went, I found this dog, and he's followed us home, and I'm leaving for Chicago right now, and I don't know what to do with this dog. And I went, it's okay. Bring him to my house. I live right here. Just put him in the yard, and I'll handle it. You don't worry about it. And she was like, oh my God, okay. And just like panicked, but you could tell that she immediately just went, oh, thank you, God.
Yeah.
And she was like, I need to leave for the
moment.
airport in 10 minutes. And I was like, it's okay.
Oh my God.
Let's bring him right over. And so I didn't know that she would, but my boyfriend was at the house, and he's doing phone interviews. And he comes to the back house, and he goes, babe.
Is this
someone's-
Carl?
Carl. He goes, someone's at the door with a dog? And I was like, shit. Yeah, I'll be right there. And I run out, and she's got the dog in the kennel and was like, here. And then ultimately I tried to find, I took him to the vet. He was healthy. I, had to get him his shots because he needed to be groomed. And I took photos of him, and I plastered them everywhere. And I didn't get him groomed for 3 days. And I plastered him up. I went to the pound, put posters at the pound, and he really got along with Vargas. And I thought to myself, this dog is better off here than at the pound right now. I'm just going to keep him here, and I'll check in with the pound with the photos every day and blah, blah, blah. So I did, and ended up taking him to get all his shots and got him groomed. And then ultimately we believe we found the owners.
Oh my goodness.
And it was a terrible, terrible situation.
Oh.
So what I did was I went back to the owner's house where we knew that it was, and I plastered more posters. I mean, it was like every poster in the world was right outside their house, thinking they'll call me. Maybe they didn't see him. And I waited another week, and they didn't call. And so ran into, my dog sitter got a note from the neighbor, and she said that I think it was an impulse buy. They don't want the dog. They're really, for whatever reason, she thought that they were unapproachable, and that was fine. And she said the dog has lived outside for 2 years, and they don't feed it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep him. I'm going to keep him. So, and he was so matted, like your dog.
Like Rhonda
he had
was,
dreadlocks that were so tight that he was bleeding all over his body. He was covered in ticks and fleas.
Right.
He had an ear infection, eye infection.
Let me just qualify. My dog is no longer like that.
Can you imagine?
It sounded like you were saying like your dog.
Like your dog over there bleeding.
Poor little Rhonda. No, she's beautifully bathed.
She's beautiful bathed. Yes. But so he's at home. And we named him Happy because he is the happiest dog I've ever met. He's just like, play with me.
Yeah.
He's like, this is amazing. What's this? This is my bed. I'm going to pee on it. Mark it. This is a toy. Oh my God, I have a whole toy box. This is fantastic. And he throws all the toys out of the box and then he picks them up and he carries them over to me one by one. And he's like, and he's just so beautifully exciting.
And how does he do with your other dogs?
There's a fight a day, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They're just, it's been a month. It'll be all right. Nobody's, there's only been one little tiny scratch and we're good.
That's great.
But it's daily.
Yeah.
You just have to be on them,
It's like kids.
I was on the phone with Trisha the other day and I dropped the phone and was screaming, running across the yard, and I picked them both up by the scruff and I'm screaming down at the phone, Trisha, I'll call you back. I'll call you back.
And she's like,
hang
oh
up.
my God, Katie's
just hang up the phone.
Dog.
And I called her back. She goes, what the hell's going on? And I was like, oh, nothing. It's fine. It's a little dog fight in the backyard.
That's right. Tell me about you and Trisha and your motorcycle charity ride. I know you probably talked about it a lot, but I'm not sure these listeners may or may not know about it.
Yeah. So Trisha Helfer and I, who played number 6 on Battlestar, we both got our motorcycle licenses at the same time.
Right.
My ex and her ex were actually sort of grew up together, unbeknownst to us when I started dating him. But so they both rode motorcycles, and she and I were like, okay, let's do this. And Trisha and I have always had this very beautiful competitive relationship where it's competitively motivating. It's not like there's not a jealousy or an envy bone in our bodies toward each other, but there is a motivating factor that comes from seeing another person succeed at something. Yeah. And so she went and got her license, and I was like, oh shit, like we're really doing this? And she was like, I don't know, I did it. And I was like, oh God, fine, I'll go next week. And then she and I just sort of kept riding together and meeting more people that rode. And one of the things that I aspire to be is as philanthropic as possible. And it was the way that I was raised. And Trisha has a very, very similar way of thinking. And so we sort of thought if we could marry something that we love with another thing that we love and do good at the same time, it would be a really great thing. Because it's really easy to do good if you're having fun. Yeah. And so we figured we could bring in a lot of awareness for different things that way. And so we
So how does it work? Explain it.
Basically, we just dubbed ourselves the Acting Outlaws because we thought it was kind of funny. And we participate in different charity motorcycle rides to get the involvement to get people more involved. So
there's already a ride organized, and then you two sign up as the Acting Outlaws.
Yes. Trisha and I have done 2 rides on our own before.
That's what I thought.
And it is a lot of work. Yeah. We did one documentary by ourselves, and I thought our friendship was over halfway through. Because it was just, she had just had her back surgery.
Oh, my gosh.
And like 6 months before, and we were riding through Arizona, New Mexico, and it was so windy that a truck driver literally pulled into a gas station, and he'd seen us riding and was like, what are you two doing? Like, you need to, this is insane. This is like gale force winds of 50 to 60 mile an hour. And we were like, oh, we'll be fine. Oh. And I pushed her to get back on her bike, and she was shaking and crying and
in pain.
It wasn't that she was in pain. She was scared she was going to hurt herself again. Yeah. But I knew that she was capable of it, and she was talking herself out of it because she was afraid. And so we spent 3 hours sitting on the side of the road, and then I was like, okay, we need to do this. You have to get up and you have to do this because you can. And you're the only person that doesn't think that you can do this. And so we got to the end of our ride, and she gave me a hug, and she was like, I wouldn't have done it without you.
Right.
So sometimes you just need a friend to kick you in the face
I
to get
think
you.
a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I certainly rely on people around me to push me through those moments where, for whatever reason, your circumstance like backloads upon you. And
Absolutely.
suddenly that which the day before seemed like a great idea, you can't face it.
Right.
Right?
There, all of our past experiences in our lives pepper the experiences we're about to have.
Right.
And unless you can, and in a negative way, unless you can figure out a way to get through those, they're going to, for example, someone explained this to me, that the first trauma you experience in your life, if you don't do the work and figure out how to get through and move through that trauma will dictate your reaction to, and will dictate what type of reaction you have for every trauma you have for the rest of your life. Whether it be, it could be a tiny thing compared to what you went through, but your reaction will be the first loss you ever had.
Right.
So that was a really interesting way of. It was more in terms of grief and people passing away and people losing people.
When you first got
your
used
first
to that
one,
idea.
Yeah. That if you can't get through it, every person you lose in your life will bring up that past loss.
Right.
And so I think. Yeah.
Do you have moments where you uncover, and I'm going to do one more ding on this one, where you uncover suddenly memory that you didn't know you had? The reason I'm asking is that because I thought I knew something about the first trauma that kind of dictated a lot of what my reactions to life are about. And just recently in some of the work I've been doing, internal work, I've gotten a whole new level of memory. And remembered earlier stuff, and I just wondered if that is part of why this is happening to me, is because I'm entering those years where your past becomes more vivid to you than your present, because you don't know what you just said, but you can remember what happened when you were 2. Or is that something that you all have experienced?
Oh, I do that all the time.
You do?
Yeah.
So you find...
Oh, you have to ding your thing.
No, not for you.
No, not for me.
I have
You have to ding your thing.
It's just for the Gong Show over here.
It's to the Gong Show to the right.
I didn't think of it that way at all.
Oh, that's
what
funny.
we'll call it. Okay.
No,
memory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I can remember an entire script from, But there's one of my first traumas. I think as children, we have this uncanny ability to forget and to block out. And there is definitely, something that happened to me as a child that I didn't remember until I was 19.
Wow.
And it came flooding back at such a fast pace that I then, called my parents and I told them, and I had to then convince them that it had happened because they were like, but it's been 15 years, not 12 years or whatever. And it was this thing, I promise I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a fantasy. This isn't something I'm, as an actor, everyone just thinks you're over dramatic sometimes.
The imagination of that girl.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
no, and it was this thing that came flooding back, and I smelled sardines, and I hadn't had a sardine since I was 6 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's total sense memory.
sense memory.
Right.
And it came flooding back at 19 years old and just punched me in the face.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. All right, now it is time to hear from Mina and Chelsea about this. What about you gals and your memory? Do you have sudden memory of something past that you didn't know? You thought you had it earlier, that's earlier than what you thought was your earliest? Have you had that at all?
I don't know if I have a hard time identifying what my earliest memory would be, but I do have that experience like Katee was describing of just something will happen or something that never seemed relevant before will suddenly tie back to something. And I'll think back and I'm like, I haven't thought about that since the moment it happened. but suddenly it's relevant now because of this thing I just saw or heard or did or, something like that. So those moments, and I don't know, is that considered deja vu? Is it just remember, something unlocks, like a sense memory, just unlocks your mind in that moment? I don't know what it is, but I experience that kind of thing quite frequently.
Wow, frequently.
And it's jarring because then you'll have experiences where you're like, I'm going to remember everything about this. It was so vivid, and then a month later you're like, I don't remember that conversation ever happening. Yeah. So it's funny how some things just enter and leave, and some things are there, but you just can't access them.
They do say that deja vu is your consciousness telling you you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Oh, I never heard that before.
Yeah.
Deja vu is your consciousness telling you that you're exactly where you are supposed to be. Who said that? Do you have any idea?
I might have made it up.
Well, that's a good one to make up.
No, someone. I vaguely remember someone telling me that at one point.
No, not that you wouldn't have made it up, but you might have.
I might have.
No, but it's a very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I always just thought deja vu was a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, right.
Come on, guys.
That's true too.
So I'm actually to get really vulnerable. I'm working through. I have really bad anxiety, and I've been working back to try to figure out where that fear and that anxiety actually started. And there's random stuff that comes back. I remember I was probably 4 years old. And my dad had gone to New York or somewhere because he toured when we were kids. And he brought back these wallets, and it was a blue one or a pink one. And I very distinctly remembering, I'm going to choose the blue one because I know that's the one my sister wants. And then I realized, 90% sure, a week later, my sister was like, I told my sister because I felt really bad. And she's like, oh no, I actually wanted the pink one. So I'm kind of working back through these things.
Yeah.
And part of it is my sister and I have always had a really competitive relationship. Mm-hmm. And so I remember thinking, did she say that because she didn't want to get upset, or she wanted me to be me to get upset that she's not upset? A whole thing. And this is how my brain works now. I'm okay, what are these people thinking now?
Are you saying that you have a memory, but you don't trust that you're remembering?
I very distinctly remember choosing the blue wallet,
right? Because
my sister would have wanted that because she was not into pink.
But then where does the memory get?
So I think the memory gets a little hazy is where that conversation where my sister was like, oh, I actually wanted the pink. The memory is very clear. I think it's the meaning behind it. Yeah. So I tend to overthink things, and I tend to say are you saying this because you really mean it, or are you saying this because...
Right.
So that's kind of where I go back.
People's honesty and their reaction.
So, and that's the root of the anxiety.
Exactly.
Because you don't know. And then, so now when you're thinking back on that, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because it's, you're following you're trying to understand the anxiety. It's
right.
that negotiation area.
It's that making the decision. It's I'm totally that person's I need to see all the angles. I need to see these pathways.
Yeah.
And that's not how life is. So it's this whole really interesting thing, but I'm working back with
memory.
With the memory and seeing why certain things are the way they are, and instead of having to think through all the stuff, just be okay, let's go way back to the start.
Right. Right.
And what do I remember about the situation that's causing me to feel or react to certain ways now?
Right.
It's hard though. It's hard to figure that stuff out.
It is.
We all have things that from childhood. I have tremendous abandonment issues. We should have Carl on for that one.
Oh yeah.
No, I do. I have.
Is he in New Zealand?
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's get him.
Yeah.
We'll eat while he comes.
Ironically, I always pick men that are far away.
Hi, Carl.
Hi.
He's awesome, by the way.
He's an amazing human being. Yeah.
So he would have things to say about your abandonment.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
He so much has said, you need to figure out why you have these abandonment issues.
Yeah.
and it's all childhood. It's all childhood things that we sort of move through and for all extensive purposes, I had a phenomenal childhood.
Yeah. I see it with my grown children who are really very cool people, and I can see clearly sometimes not so clearly, because as a parent, you just feel awful. But at times I can see clearly without feeling awful, just respecting the way life is and, my own humanity. I can see the trauma. And I remember the moment, and it was my fault. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that's what I was inflicting. But, and it's interesting. It's interesting. Neither of my parents are alive, and they've both been gone for a while. I lost my dad when I was 22, and that was a trauma.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. But that requires then a different kind of exploring your childhood when you don't have the reference anywhere near you. You have to, anyway, whatever. That's a subject we could talk about forever. We don't have too much more time. We could, but, okay. So, Katee, first of all, is there anything you want to talk about, bring up, tell us, or ponder that we haven't touched on yet this time? Is there anything on your mind currently about your life, your career, the world? Oh, God forbid.
God forbid.
No, God.
No, it's, I find myself in a very interesting place.
Okay.
I think that so much of our society pushes onto women still what your life should look like. And never taking into consideration that certain things aren't possible for women. And I find myself in this place now. Somebody, and I'm sort of at a place now where I can laugh about this, and I've never really even talked about it publicly. The fact that I can't have children, so I cannot carry my own children. There is a problem with my uterus, and because of the having had cancer twice and having still have a tumor on my pituitary gland, it makes pregnancy not only very difficult, but the likelihood of carrying to term almost impossible. So there's this guy that walked by me about 2 years ago, and he was a fan, and I was on the phone with my mom, but I was pushing Nellie Bean in a baby carriage because Nellie Bean cannot walk long distances and Vargas can. And I was walking down the street because, I learned a long time ago, if you don't want an older dog to act up, you have to take them with you.
Yeah.
And you can't carry them. You'd kill yourself. So I push her in this baby carriage. Laugh at me all you want. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But this guy screamed out his car window, "Use your uterus before it dies. Your dogs are not your children."
No, Katee.
And I literally almost turned around and was like, "I can't fucking have children, you piece of shit." But it was like this reaction where, you just sort of, I think that, and it's women. Women are so mean to other women. They judge your relationship by the fact that you're not married or you don't have children. They judge your past relationship and the fact that it ended after 10 years by the fact that you didn't get married and you didn't have children. And they push this on you. And it is...
Oh, in this particular case, it was a man.
Yeah, in this one it was. But it is a very hard thing in our day and age now with celebrity to take the good fan interactions and ignore the bad.
Yeah.
Because the bad are louder and the bad hurt more. Yeah. And that is why people are mean to each other, because for some weird reason they think that judging someone else's life and the way they're living makes them feel better about themselves. And so what I've been practicing is back to empathy. It must be really hard to have so much hate in your heart.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
I think that it's also one of those things where you sort of want to stand on the mountaintops and scream to support so many women in the world that can't have children or choose not to have children. But I'm not there yet.
Yeah,
I'm not at a point where I can be the voice for people with broken uteruses. I'm not there yet. Maybe someday I will be, but right now I'm not. Yeah. But what it's done is it's made me very susceptible to the opinions that women on social media spit at me about my relationship and my self-worth, which is in their minds wrapped up in this person who loves me. And that is a really interesting thing, because there's a part of you that wants to say, you know, these people that are like, move to New Zealand and have a baby. And it's like, you're right, because that's going to make everything better. You know, that's going to make everything.
Fascinating.
And so it's, I think that the
Let
reason.
me ask you one question.
Yeah.
First of all,
Yeah.
thank you for the generosity of sharing that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, Katee.
It's the first time I've said it out loud, and now
Well,
I'm saying it to
I'm
the world.
really, I really am grateful.
Yeah.
Everyone will be, for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's a big deal, and there's a lot to share on that. But you're right.
Yeah.
You're not ready to be the voice.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be. You're not obligated.
No.
But do you think that people comment more on your relationship because you're both really
powerful
actors and big celebrities?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's what it is?
Absolutely.
Tell me what that's like. I mean, is it?
I think, you know, without getting too much into the workings of my relationship, because there are definitely aspects that we like to keep incredibly private.
Right.
But I think that there is a certain perception of people that think that you chose this life and therefore it's my right to be able to criticize you and the choices that you've made in your life.
Because you've chose a life that implies fame.
Right. And what's interesting is that when I chose this life, none of this existed.
No.
Like, you could be the most famous actor in the world.
And nobody knew a thing about it.
No one knew anything.
Yeah.
That's when I started.
Yeah.
You know, this is all very new to me. And coming to terms with all of it has been a struggle. I'm sure it has for yourself as well.
Completely.
But the reason I bring it up is I do believe that there's a voice that I have that comes from feminism and strength of women. And I do not believe a relationship or having children validates you as a person. And that is something that I have come to terms with and that I am working through, because that loss of not being able to do something that should be so simple really hit home with you're a failure. Like, the one thing you're supposed to be able to do,
because you're a girl,
you can't do it. And I think that we are too hard on ourselves. We are too hard on other women. We are too opinionated and judgmental of the way that other women choose to live their lives. And what I would really love to see happen in the near future is an unbiased support of women by other women. That's what we should do for each other, you know. And I wish that, you know, Democrat, Republican, because it's gotten worse now that the label of who you voted for is on your chest like a scarlet letter, regardless of who you voted for on either side. Now that that's there, that makes you even more of a target of judgment and criticism. And I think that is just, it's a world that we live in now that we have the power to change. I don't know how.
I was just going to say, like, if you experience that the resistance to the truth, that's what I think you're talking about a little bit.
Yeah.
This is who we are. This is who I am. Is coming primarily from women, as opposed to the whatever's going on with men, the hashtag Me Too world that we're in the middle of. So, do we change that by understanding that woman better, apropos of what you were talking about in a general sense? How does that happen? How do we get each other to stop falling into what I think was a cliche that was set up by the patriarchy to begin with, which is how to keep women competing.
Right.
How to keep them competing. I mean, that was definitely part of our business for a very long time, if not still a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you started young and I started actually older. The beginning of our careers, in this business, I never felt, or very rarely felt, that the other women in the room and I were being ever told the same thing. So you would be purposely set up to have a different perception of the project, of your value in the project, of the other people's value in the project, and then they would watch you sort of trip over each other and start to compete, which kept you more beholden to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went off on a thing here. But
yeah.
in the sense that that's a cultural thing that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, how do we trust each other now and say, I can't do this without you understanding that my truth is what I want you to align with too. I'll align with yours. How do you get there? How do you get women to stop wanting to put you down?
It's a hard thing. I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, is that, if you can't look at another person through kind, empathetic eyes,
right,
and then we have a problem.
Right.
And I think that is where we're at in the United States and in the world right now, is that, there is this self-serving selfishness that's sort of like permeating government and dictatorship and, all religion, all of these different aspects that for some reason bastardize a beautiful thing and turn it into hatred of another person. So I don't know how to fix that other than start with the woman you walk up to on the street. Start small, and start on your own social media. And that's where I experience it the most is, start there. Start with, we all have the opportunity and the ability to just be positive.
Yeah. I think one of the things that made the most sense to me in the years that for a few years, I was studying Buddhism pretty intensely. This amazing teacher, Lama Marut, who started out being Brian Smith, an ex-surfer motorcycle rider from Southern California, and transformed.
I would have fallen in love with him.
He is amazing. He is amazing. He taught me a great deal, but one of the things that really stuck with me is he said, the only change that's possible is simply in how you respond. Mm-hmm. And so constantly saying that to myself over and over. And I know that you know that, but I also suspect, Katee, when I think of you and you have so much power out there in the roles that you play and in who you are, I suspect that as time moves forward with you, you will have legions of women supporting you.
Oh, well, thank you.
I really do.
Thank you.
I really do.
But you said something that was so beautiful, though, about
I did.
Yeah, no, that the motorcycle surfing Buddhist said. That, what I thought you were going to say is the only change you're responsible for is the change within yourself. That's what I thought, where I thought you were going. But it was something so much more simple. And it's just, the only thing you can do is change the way in which you react. And that's so important because it's the truth. And I struggle with this all the time, is that, and Chelsea, I meditate. So that's how I got through my anxiety. But one of the things that people around me say all the time is, you can't let it hurt you.
Right.
You have to just brush it off your shoulder and be bigger than that. That's a very hard thing to do.
Well, it is. And every time someone says you can't do this, you have to do this, I go, but how? I was on where was it? We were somewhere in the past year, and I was on the stage with these women, and all these wonderful things were being said, but I kept going, but how? What do you mean I can't? I do. I can't help not. How do I stop? How do I stop responding that way? That's why Brian was important to me, Lama Marut, because it meant there is something you can do. You can simply not, again, there's a not in it. simply decide my response to life is going to have the qualities of the life I want to create.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes, and it helps you, I find, it helps me to dispersonalize. Is that a word? Do we know? Depersonalize. Yes,
I think so.
Whatever.
It's all right.
You know
I
what
can't
I mean?
spell.
You guys are all used to me.
Make 'em up.
I said it. You know what I mean? You know what? Depersonalize what's coming at you.
Impersonalize.
Impersonalize. Dis.
Shit, I don't know.
Whatever.
But yes.
It all means that.
Yes.
We know what we mean.
Yes.
You don't want to take personally everything.
Yeah.
So people say don't take it personally. How do you not take it personally?
Right.
And his idea, his practice, his belief, I guess you would say at this point, is that future, there's no past, there's no future. There's only this right now.
Right now.
So all these dreams we have will not happen, or will happen, determined by how the present moment is being responded to. And so that's the only thing we can change. So I don't know.
There's this, going back to the Ram Dass documentary that I watched, when he said, because meditation is such a huge part of my life, and I every once in a while put in an intention, and he was saying that your intention is to just be complete acceptance and love. That's it. Just complete acceptance.
Yeah.
You can't change anyone else. Just complete acceptance and love.
Yeah.
That is such a hard thing.
It is.
But he also had this most beautiful clock that every single number just said now. And it was amazing.
Oh, that just took my breath away.
Because it's what you said.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
I saw
I'm gonna
that and
make one
went,
of
I
those.
want one. Yeah. It
Every
was so
second said now.
Every
Yeah.
single number on the clock just said now.
Oh.
Yeah. Because it's right now.
Because it's right now.
You know? Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful?
Question for you.
Yeah.
When did you said you started meditating in high school?
No. So
we were both swimmers.
I always
do you remember that?
Yeah.
Competitive swimmers. Here we
I
are.
always did yoga and like I always did visualization techniques for swimming. I would always visualize my race before the race.
And who taught you that? Coach, father, someone
maybe
male?
My coach. Maybe I learned it by watching some Olympian at some point.
Yeah,
I don't,
totally.
maybe. And meditation came very, very difficult.
Was difficult for you.
We'll get there, ladies.
I know. We're running out of steam, I think.
We haven't even had any wine.
Yeah.
And until I found a meditation that worked for me. And once I found that meditation, it just changed everything. And
is that TM?
Yeah, and that was 4 years ago. And you know, a lot of people say that someone had asked me on Instagram, you know, why do celebrities push TM? It costs so much money. And I was like, you know, it's not about that. It's just about expressing what meditation has worked for me, and then for you to find the one that works for you.
That's right.
You know, I'm not pushing you to go do anything. It's just I searched for a long time for something that meditation that didn't make me feel like a failure, which is a big thing for me.
Yes. Big thing for most people, I think, is our expectations of meditation are so naive, really. We don't really understand what it is, so we think we're failing at it.
Absolutely.
Right?
When all it is just to sit still.
Yeah, I know.
Just
try.
Just sit still for a minute.
But for some reason, TM helped you do that over and over and over.
Yeah,
That's
it did.
awesome.
Yeah, and it changed my life. Really changed my life.
And that was 4 years ago, you say.
Yeah.
And did you join a group?
No. So
I'm just always so curious when someone finally zeroes in on a particular form of meditation that works for them. How it happened.
Mine came to me through my boyfriend, who
Yay, Carl! Ding,
yay!
Ding. We should start dinging for Carl.
Ding for Carl.
Here, let's just give him a ding.
Just give him a ding.
Carl.
There you go. And he had, from an outsider's perspective that was coming at me with complete love, managed to sit me down and say, "You're spiraling. Every day you're up and down and up and down." And he said, "And I feel that if you could just stop, you'd be much more powerful. And he bought me the course, and I never looked back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's my alarm to tell me to stop eating, Katee, at 1:00, so I can take my medication in 2 hours.
Stop eating or stop chewing?
Stop eating.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I thought it was your soil guy.
No, my soil guy. No, I have to stop eating at 1:00 because I take my thyroid meds at 3, so it goes off again at 3:00.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I know.
So you do understand, everyone, that we eat our way through this podcast, and we do encourage you to eat and drink your way through listening. I think, Katee, we're going to wind down now, but I want to say that first of all, it's just been a pleasure to spend this time with you without a zillion people around us, which is how we usually
having
spend
these conversations whilst someone's
we
touching our
usually
face.
but we've always tried to talk.
Yes.
We always have.
Always.
So, it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this. But I also just, you've been very, very generous today.
Oh, well, thank you.
Not that you weren't other times. I'm just today.
Such
you were
a
good.
bitch yesterday.
Oh my God, she was so much better, wasn't she? Ding ding. No, really generous, and I admire it, and I'm really grateful for it. I think that it's when a woman who has a level of fame and sort of creativity and industriousness and sort of tenacity. I would say you're a tenacious person. You don't give up. When you decide to share this level, I think that's a really cool thing for people out there. And I admire it, and I'm very grateful for it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All we have is our truth,
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Right.
And if I keep that to myself, then I might be missing out on my truth having an impact on somebody.
That's right. And also I've experienced that people share their truth, and then they learn so much from the people who then bring stuff to them.
Right.
The legions of women.
Yeah, absolutely. The League of Extraordinary Women.
That's right.
It's going to be.
That's right. And I look forward to your new show.
Oh, thank you.
Whatever this is, I can't wait to hear. And I can't wait to hear how you feel once it's up and running, liking wearing both hats.
We'll find out.
And acting.
Because I reserve the right to change my mind.
Oh, yeah.
And decide that I don't want to do it.
And there's a lot of people that do it that don't really do it. But I suspect you're not one of those. So you won't be able to just pretend you're EP.
No, I'm gonna need an assistant.
You're gonna need at least one
with 3 dogs, 3 dogs, and all that dialogue. So it's okay.
Thank
it
you
takes
so
a village.
much, honey. Really,
thank you for having me.
Absolutely marvelous. Chelsea, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah. So first and foremost, Mary, again, thank you so much for bringing everybody all together. Thank you, Katee, for being a part of our conversation today. I know I have learned so much, and it's been an absolutely amazing couple of hours. I'm going to go ahead and get the boilerplate out of the way, but keep listening because there's more after this. But if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more, go ahead and click that subscribe button wherever you are listening to this podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all those good places. If you have questions, you can use the hashtag LadyBandPodcast, and we will see them. So for all of you that submitted questions for this round, thank you. And if you really, really like what you're hearing, we would love it if you would leave us a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. And I think that does it for me. I'm going to hand you guys over to Mina. Mina?
Well, Katee, thank you for coming. And I think, going back to the beginning of our conversation, talking about, you not feeling like, being in this position but not feeling like a teacher, I think this is an example of how you are a teacher. And I think everyone who can open up and discuss things as they, are to them and what their life experience is, that's teaching all of us from that. I know for myself, I learned a lot today listening, and I'm going to take a lot of this and reflect on it myself. So thank you for that. And to you, Mary, for bringing us all together for this amazing conversation.
Thank you.
It's a very safe place.
That's what we want it to be. It is evolving, obviously. We've got a couple things we've figured out. We're going to use this. We're going to eat.
Yes.
And we're going to have really awesome people.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that this was a really lovely journey. And it went in many different ways than I thought it might. But I'm thrilled. And I can't wait to hear it. And we will do it again.
Yes.
It would be nice to follow up with you.
Yes.
After the show is opening.
Yes.
After you've been a producer for a while, and find out where you are.
Yes.
I would love to do that. So.
Yes. And according to Waze, I'm only 17 minutes away.
Oh, good.
So close.
Yeah, I know. It'll be really fun, and then pretty soon there won't be any airport traffic for you.
It'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, so I'm going to sign off now, you guys, and thank you. And please watch and listen, and please continue to do what you've been doing so well, which is you spread the word about this podcast in ways that I find really touching. The kind of feedback we got after the first Lady Bam was so specific. And I encourage you to continue to give us that kind of specificity and put that out there, because the point is, if there is a woman out there, a man out there, a young person out there, or, one of my peer group that doesn't know we're on here and hasn't found yet the podcast that they love, or that they feel speaks to them and they want to be spoken to, it's you guys putting it out there and responding so specifically. That's how they're going to find out about it. So I really love all of you. I'm really thrilled to be here. And as usual, this podcast has been brought to you in part by MajorCrimesTV.net.